fun too.
I forgot where I put my badge.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Wiggins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Heckey.
Here.
And Councilmember Pogencourt.
Here.
Everyone is here. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask you to rise as we invite Pastor Mike Stafford from Tehachapi Vineyard Church to lead us in our invocation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I would like to say I'm brand new to Tehachapi. I never heard of it until a year ago. And you guys have been so kind and welcoming. You have a beautiful city. I'm thankful to be a part of it. So thank you for being here and
Thank you.
serving our city the way that you do. Let's pray together.
Thank you.
Father, we come before you today and we say thank you for this beautiful city that you've given us, Lord, not only to live in and to love, Lord, but to steward and to care for, and to cause her to be all that you've intended her to be. We know that you love the city of Tehachapi, Lord, and you want to see her thrive and be healthy and a beautiful representation of your creativity. So we just stand before you tonight. We lift up our civil servants. We know that their job is often, Lord, a thankless one. It's a hard one, Lord, and discerning often, Lord, between issues that aren't super clear cut. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of gray area. So we do ask tonight for your wisdom, for your leadership, for your heart, Lord, in our city and amongst our leadership. Would you cause there to be a profound sense of unity, of compassion, of kindness, of care for one another and for this beautiful city. So we ask your discernment, your wisdom, Lord, your heart for this place, for these people, for this city. Lord, thank you for our leadership. Fill them with wisdom. Fill them with your heart. We stand before you tonight and we say we need you, and we want to care for well what you've given us to steward. So thank you, Father, for being amongst us and with us. Lord, bless the conversation and the time tonight as we discern your heart. Pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Mr. Schlosser, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence when that agenda item comes up. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public this evening? Okay. At this time, I would like to invite Mary Lou Corpus Zamudio to come forward. Oh, I'm sorry. I just assume we approve it. I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
Were you speaking of public comments or just comments about what you were talking about?
No, I was speaking of public comments, but just a minute, I skipped the consent agenda.
Yeah.
No wonder it was so quiet. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda if no one wants anything pulled from it.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to have item 4, 5, and 6 removed, please.
Okay? Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion with those 3 items removed.
Motion.
Moved, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. All right, now we can have public comments.
Good evening, Tehachapi City. I have a little thing here I'd like to read to you right here real quick. Says, I do solemnly swear to affirm I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and to the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. This is a sworn oath that you, Joan, Ken, Susan, Phil, Dave, Michael, you guys all took this oath. And did you listen to that last part? Y'all signed it too. So I'm assuming signing it, you understood what you were entering, correct? Okay. Now when you signed that last sentence right there, I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose or evasion, and that I will and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. The duties you entered, may it be signing something for Greg, maybe signing something for Jay, for their projects, maybe signing something for the police department, union agreements. You entered into that in 2016, specifically you, Susan, and you, Phil, entered into that, correct?
Whatever is in the record, yes.
You don't agree that you did, or you don't recall, or?
No, I'd say, well, if it's in the record and we've done it, I would agree, sure.
So the next thing I want to share with you here then is what you agreed to. This right here is the section inside our employee MOU agreement, the union, to the Tehachapi Police Department. This is section 6, subsection A. Evidentiary appeal to council. Request for appeal and hearing. A regular or cause employee may appeal from a final notice discipline in the form of suspension, demotion, reduction in pay, termination, and by delivering a written answer to the charges and requests the appeal to the city manager and designee, who will then forward the appeal to the city council. The written answer and request for appeal must be received no later than 10 calendar days from the date of the department director's decision. That employee should indicate whether he or she is requesting to have a closed or open hearing. On the day Chief Kroger wrongfully terminated me, I not only told him verbally, which he recorded, I also put it in written form. Was that any of that ever produced to you? Because it says right here we're supposed to. Phil, Susan, you were there. Was that ever produced to you? Tom, I'm asking them. This is not a legal question. They're not being questioned about the case. They're being questioned about their actions as council members. And for you to say we're not going to answer this only screams guilt. What you need to say is, you can snicker about it all you want. It wasn't your life that was destroyed because you wouldn't testify about Amanda's racist comments and a hostile work environment. That's what happened. And then I was wrongfully terminated because I wouldn't testify about your comments. And you found out about it because Scott told you.
Are we timing this?
Yeah, you should be timing it because that's the only way you're going to get rid of me. Let's go to the next section. Date and time of appealing. The council will set a date for an appeal hearing within a reasonable time after the receipt of the timely written answer and request appeal. An employee who, having filing the timely answer and appeal, have been notified by the time and place of the hearing, and who fails to appear personally in hearing, and then that just says if I fail to show up. But what it says there is that you, the city council members, Jay, are you finding something funny? If you're not here for this shit,
Speak up here.
Director, yeah, he comes to shit to himself.
Excuse me. Your 3 minutes, you got like 20 more seconds for you.
Anyways, within 10 days I did it. So the only failure here was for you guys to do your duty, and the only failure here was for you guys to set an appointment. Why am I still asking for this?
This is a personnel item, and I am not going to comment on this.
You made. Why can't you make a comment? This is your agreement.
Because it's a personnel issue.
Seriously.
Serious.
This is just what you're going to hide behind. You're going to hide behind somebody being fired because he testified against racism, a hostile work environment, and he had some bullshit charges made up against it.
Okay, your
Hey, I'm sorry,
time's up.
but they are. My time's up. You know, I lost property, I lost a marriage, I lost a family, all because of this man and this man with their evil actions and wanting to come after me. None of you seem to care. That's what happened. So is anybody here willing to hear this? You're obligated to by your own contracts.
You're out of time, Mr. Griff.
They just heard it all. Your time is up now.
No, but I want to know if they're going to hear it.
They already did. Your time is up.
What did you hear?
They heard everything you said.
Oh, but I'm referring to my matter. Did anybody, because Councilman Wallstrom came up here and said, you never dismissed
Mr.
it.
Graff, your time is up.
Yeah,
See, when
I'm
you take
sorry.
an oath, that means
You
you
have to
stick
sit
to it.
down, Mr. Graff.
Michael, you took an oath with the sheriff's department, even as a volunteer.
Yeah, Mr. Graff,
That doesn't.
Mr. Graff, you're now
mean anything to you?
disrupting the meeting. You've been asked to sit down. You can sit down.
Your oath doesn't mean nothing to
You
you?
can leave the building.
That's the way you are?
Mr. Graff.
You're not a man of integrity, otherwise you would have spoke up.
Thank you, Chief.
Are your instructions for him to leave the building or the room?
As long as he sits there and does
All
not
right.
disrupt the meeting, he can
Thank
stay.
you. Thank you. Are there any other public comments to come before the council?
Technology. Clint Davies, Carroll Way. Technology. Funny thing. Last city council meeting, I go into my car and I sit down and I go turn on the speaker, listen to my music, and I hear your voice. Somebody left a Bluetooth headset on or something and was going to my phone and broadcast on my speaker. And I thought this was interesting. You guys talk about Sun Select and how to scam. And then I heard as it was ending a joke, but I gotta tell you, Madam Mayor, comedy's not your line of work. And with permission, I would like to play the comments that you made. And I think it's very ironic in light of the last couple months that something like this there shouldn't be attention called to it. Let me tell you, you know why it's not funny? That's not a Korean accent, that's Chinese. I know, it's confusing. I think German and French sound the same. And you probably thought it sounds the same, but I think it's, you know, when does that become acceptable to use ethnic voices and mock in people like that? Why is that acceptable? Why is it that you can accuse other people of being racist for making racially insensitive comments? You know, but yet here you are pulling a movie from the 1950s with your impersonation of the Korean owners of the greenhouse. I mean, where do you get off on that?
Well, first of all, I couldn't hardly understand that. And second of all, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'll go ahead and put it on my
The greenhouse, is that what you said?
No, it's what you said. I'm not gonna impersonate what you did, but I think it's rather insensitive for you to be like that, and I think you should be censured. Moreover, not just because of what you said, but mainly because you're kind of a hypocrite. And that's my comments tonight. Well, good luck and good night. Oh, there's a big state dropping tomorrow. You'll be interested.
Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Susan Monroe, I live here. This is to Mr. Davies. I wrote you personally, and you didn't answer me. And what I'd like to ask is, it seems like any corporation or city you have to do from time to time, you have to do certain questionnaires for harassment and other procedures in the workplace. And at a city council meeting, you asked Mr. Heckey if he had done his, let's just say, his bully report, and he had. And I thought that was pretty mean of you and unprofessional of you. And have you done all of the coursework that you're supposed to do?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay. Do you think it would be a good thing for you to apologize to Mr. Headkey and to us for that, what appeared to me to be an attack?
No, ma'am. I asked him the question because I was asked by citizens of this Tehachapi. Some of my constituents had asked me all week if I would ask Mr. Headkey if he completed his bully sensitivity class. And that's what I did, ma'am.
And you have
Yes.
completed that, and you printed out your certificate of completion?
Yes, I did all mine, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all in general.
But going forward, wouldn't you think a more professional and humane way to do this would just need to ask him privately, one-on-one, so then you could answer your constituents? To do this in this sort of setting, see, that seems to be a bullying and harassment tactic to me and to others that I've spoken to. So that's what I'm putting before you. That's how it's perceived, and perception goes a long way, especially in a forum such as this. And I really do think, even now, you should apologize for not treating it as a one-on-one professionally.
I thought I was very professional, ma'am. I asked him straight out in the city council, because this is where all those questions came about. I asked him straight up, and he answered the question, and nothing else was said. I had people come to me and ask me to ask the question. They wanted to hear it. So I did. They wanted to hear it from him.
And I've had people come to me saying that was very unprofessional.
I've had 3 to 1 come to me and say what I did was correct.
You're almost out of time, ma'am.
All right, going forward, I'd like to say to all of you, maybe you should invest in a little better way than attacking your fellow council members. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, if not now, I would like to invite Mary Lou Corpus Zamudio to come forward. We, as a council and a city, would like to honor Mary Lou this evening for her time that she served on the Tehachapi Valley Recreation Board. We want to thank you for your service as a city appointee to that board. We appreciate your time commitment to this board and for helping improve the quality of life for the citizens of our community. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say thank you, and I'll stand this way because I don't have my back to you all, but thank you, everyone, because one of the things I have learned is that connection is so important. And if there's anything that I have gotten from this whole volunteer in the city of Tehachapi, because I think I've been in so many boards on the council and Valley Parks and Recreation, is the connection. Whether it's good or bad, I work for Sunselect. So I know, the connection is so important because that's how we develop ourselves and other people in the community, and most importantly, our children. And that's where all this community service has led me to. Now I pull myself back, and my whole dedication is with my church and with a nonprofit that I'm working with in Los Angeles for Inner Kid Cities. I'm bringing to Tehachapi to support our foster children of Tehachapi gain leadership skills. And so you'll be hearing about that, but that's my full focus. So in connection, whether we agree or disagree, we have our opinions, but it's connection for the community and for the kids so that we can raise them right. So thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to, let's see, item number 4, Mr. Headkey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question, and it actually ties together with item number 5 also, which was removed from the consent agenda. The question came up as to whether or not on item number 4, if Night Security, who has been contracted to better assist with the Grand Fondo, Chief, have the folks from Night Security had a discussion with you or to Mr. Garrett specifically regarding any concerns that our department may have in support of the event? This is an outside security agency that has been contracted by the TVRPD. And just so we've got good connectivity between our department and an outside agency, it's important, I think, that we understand, or we better understand what, if any, discussion has been had, so we don't have an outside agency working counter to what our own department is doing.
Good afternoon or evening, Michelle Vance, Tehachapi Valley Recreation Park District, event director for the Grand Fondo. Night Security doesn't do, they only do the plaza and they protect the rentals and the property of the vendors. So if something were to happen, they call 911 just like any citizen. They're just like, they just protect and watch the goods that are in the plaza. So they call 911.
Thank you, Michelle.
And Mr. Hackett, I haven't had any conversation with them. I believe this is the same organization that we contracted with in the past. We've had no issues down there. Again, they're down there simply guarding equipment that's left overnight.
Okay, thank you. As an outsider looking into policing, and I'm by no means an expert in policing or security, I would feel that it would be more appropriate if an outside agency would at least spend 15 or 20 minutes at the PD and make sure that everybody is on the same page, due to the fact that this is not, this isn't a mere 100 people coming to town. This is 1,000 plus people potentially coming. And if we're comfortable with what NICE has done in the past, which it sounds like we are, that's fine. But I still feel that it would be beneficial for our own staff to be in understanding and make sure that the folks on the other side of the page understand what, Chief, your expectations are for security in that setting.
So
and that's
Night Security does not deal with crowds or people. They only deal with property. So they're not the thousands of people that come to town. They do not interact with them. We have other means of handling that.
Mr. Garrett, do you know if our PD do we know the number of people that are involved in this security agency? Are they properly identified? Do we know that at 3 o'clock in the morning when our officers are out doing their normal patrol and they see somebody back in one of the coves within the city, that something doesn't happen? Again, I think we need to be very, very well connected in what we're doing regarding our patrol staff versus an outside agency.
Yeah, my patrol staff's very well aware that security is on site, and we've interacted with them in the past. My patrol staff does patrol checks through the area, checks on the security people to ensure that everything's going smoothly.
And Night Security does the 4th of July event. They do Mountain Festival. They do most of our community events here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we use them for 4th of July as well, and they are strictly overnight for stuff that's set up the day before, and then they always check in when they get there. They call the contact, it's myself, Michelle, for this event, and they will say, hey, I'm here, and then our patrol staff knows that we have security, but they also know that this is where property is going to be set overnight, so they usually do extra patrols for any event that has overnight property.
And as to item number 5, that's a filming event, sir, and they will be performing that same role as far as just securing equipment, watching equipment there. We will be contracting with that organization for a law enforcement officer to be present to control traffic, crowds, and that type of thing.
Okay, super. Thank you on that, Chief. between item number 4 and 5, I noticed that the filming crew, Mr. Garrett, proposed a parking area on the other side of the tracks adjacent to or just north of the depot. That's railroad property, I believe. I know that in the past, either with Grand Fondo or with the Mountain Fest or some of the other bigger activities that go on in town, Apple Fest, that parking area is completely jammed, and there's a tremendous number of folks that are walking back and forth across the tracks. With the filming company, they specified that location as an alternate parking area for the people that are participating. I noticed that on the Grand Fondo application, there was no reference to an alternative parking area. I think we need to clarify what the city's position is regarding allowing parking for an event. Again, I'm talking size. The filming crew, I don't know, 20, 30 cars, it's not a big thing. The Grand Fondo is a whole different deal. There are literally thousands of, or hundreds of cars for sure that potentially will be parked all over the area. And I don't know that we as the city have the authority to grant that parking privilege to people that are approaching us because it's railroad property.
Just so you know, we did contact the event applicant. They are aware that's railroad property and we cannot grant them access to that property. So that's, you're approving the closure, not for them to be able to park in that area.
Okay, so is that...
And Grand Fondo parking is the new parking lot that we have in downtown and the school parking lot. We do not allow anyone to park in downtown. Actually, we work with the volunteer explorers for the sheriff's department. They actually line downtown on Tehachapi Boulevard and do not allow anyone to park in downtown. And then they use the parking lot, the new parking lot, and then also the school parking lot. They do not park anywhere else. And it's a map that they're handed when they pick their packet up. So they are reminded through email for their pre-check-in, and when they check in, they're handed a map and reminded that they cannot park in downtown.
Great, thank you. And I have no other questions on 4 and 5. On to item number 6.
Before we move on, do you want to make a motion to approve?
Well, either that or we can just go ahead and do 6. 6 is this very simple question.
Okay.
And Mr. Schroeder, this is actually for you. We have a charge from Richard Watson and Gershon for $6,800 and some change there. Could you please give me an update on what that actually, that legal service was for?
I can do that as the city manager and I sign the checks. So $6,800 included $175 for the cannabis fight that we're under. Mr. Davies, the conflict of interest, $1,325 for RSI. Mr. Headkey, the conflict of interest for the airport, $1,255. Elections, $25. General administration charges, $25. Mr. Headkey's harassment case, $2,038. SB 54, which is a sanctuary state, $650. And sidewalk vendor questions, $875.
Great, thank you, Mr. Garrett, and I have no further questions on that. So I will make a motion that we, on staff's recommendation, approve item 4, 5, and 6 as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve 4, 5, and 6 that were pulled off the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Finance Director.
Number 7.
Oh, yes, number 7.
Madam Mayor, I need to recuse myself as I'm an employee of ours. I voted.
All right, we have before us the disbursement and bills for RSI Petroleum for April 10th, 2019 through April 29th, 2019. Are there any questions or can I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The record show it was 4-0 with Mr. Davies recused. All right. Hannah, agreement with Wildan Financial.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Biggins and council members. Hannah Chong, Finance Director. The agenda before you is an agreement with the Wildan Financial for CFT 2017-1 Administration Service Contract. So the background is the council approved the formation of Community Facilities District, we call it CFD, 2017-1 in 2017 for Walmart. The Walmart agreed to pay special taxes, which will be used to pay for police and city services that are expected to result from the development of the Walmart project. Special taxes for the CFD will be calculated in accordance with the methodology and rate established by the CFD. Currently, the Wildan provides admin service for landscape lighting district and drainage basin assessment district. And so now city staff is recommending Wildan to also provide administration services for this particular CFD. The description of administrative service is included in the Exhibit A of the agreement. The fiscal impact from this proposed annual administrative service fee from Wildan for CFD is $5,000 a year plus any reimbursable expenditures. So this cost will be recovered through CFD taxes. So staff recommends council to approve CFD. Unless you have any questions, sorry. I would like to say a recommendation that CFD 2017-1 Administrative Service Agreement between the city and Wildan Financial Services and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience concerning this item? Council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented by staff.
Motion?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Development Services Director Report, number 10.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this item for you tonight is yet another step in the Active Transportation Program Rail Corridor Pedestrian Safety Project, which we've been talking to you guys about now for, well, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. So we are getting close to being able to go out to bid for construction of this project. This is the final primary hurdle to that, which is signing the formal agreements with the Union Pacific for the improvements to the 3 at-grade crossings, specifically Green Street, Hayes, and Denison, where the project, as a reminder to you guys, is about a $2.2 million project. If it's coming well, it's a booming economy, so I certainly, we'll see how that goes, but it's to improve the crossings. That's the primary expense on the project, is all 3 crossings will be completely reconstructed for better vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle movements across that. And then the primary safety elements of the project include extensive fencing in the downtown area in order to orient bicycles and pedestrians in particular. Cars aren't too big a problem. We'll actually use the at-grade crossings instead of trespassing in places where they shouldn't be. So the item tonight is the UP requires an agreement each for each crossing, and each agreement indicates and shows the proposed design for what specifically will occur there, and then the reimbursement arrangement that we have with Union Pacific. They won't let you touch their tracks. Naturally, they do that work and require you to pay them back. And then improvements to the signal arms to make the whole project work, and then all the pedestrian and striping and curb and gutter and all those components are gathered up in this agreement. So this is the next step from here. Once these are done, we have to do a final step with the California Public Utilities Commission, who regulates the railroads for the project. And if those are done, then we go to Caltrans, who administers the grant funds, to ask them for formal permission to go to bid. So we're close. We don't expect either of the next two steps to be difficult to achieve. This was the one that took 2.5 years to get the railroad to come around. And I will state it's an expensive project, but the railroad is prepared to contribute 50% of the cost of the rail improvements, which I'm being told by their representatives is nearly unprecedented. They usually will contribute nothing and expect you to pay for all of it, but they see the worth of the project from a safety perspective and have agreed to contribute 50% of the cost. That still leaves us with a significant amount of money to spend, but with that, I recommend that you approve and authorize the mayor to sign the agreements between the City of Tehachapi and Union Pacific Railroad for the Rail Corridor Pedestrian Safety Project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the audience? Yes?
Mike Lerner, Bear Valley. It's my understanding on railroad grade crossings, the way they are right now, the locomotives have to blow their horn about 3 or 4 times as they come up on. And there is grade crossing upgrades with different signaling and crossbars and devices to keep cars from going around them. If that is done, then they no longer have to blow that horn at every grade crossing. And I know there's been a lot of people that object to those trains and those horns at night. And I think some of you know what I mean. Is any of that being considered to be done to those grade crossings? I know it's a tremendous amount of money to put the different signaling and the gates and the barriers to keep cars from going around the gates once they go down. But I believe that's part of the mechanism that will allow the train not to have to blow its horn when it comes up to each one of those grade crossings. Do we know anything about that?
Would you like to?
Yes, please.
Yeah, you're speaking about quiet crossings, something that we've discussed with Union Pacific on 2 or 3 different occasions in my tenure as city engineer. The primary problem with them, you do speak about, in generalizations, about the requirements associated with a quiet crossing. Unfortunately, they also require significant distances, safe distances prior to the crossings in order to achieve them. Distances we don't have due to the proximity of A Street and Tehachapi Boulevard parallel to and adjacent to the railroad. And so they basically told us it's not something they would ever support doing because we couldn't meet the federal rail guidelines for how to achieve a quiet crossing. I would say anecdotally, I've also heard from some of the train buffs that there's not universal desire to eliminate the train noise. I, for one, agree with the desire to eliminate the train noise, but there are some train buffs that think it's the coolest thing ever to hear the train roll through town, honking its horn. So we have looked at it a number of times, and sort of each of the 3 times that I've looked at it, we've concluded that it's not feasible to do. So,
people that live in town get used to that noise, but I've heard a lot of complaints from the Pacific Coast trail hikers that are camped there on the airport park at night, trying to get a night's sleep. And that thing, if you've ever tried camping there, that thing, you cannot sleep once those horns start coming down that track right in that area. So that's the complaints that we're getting here. And we wondered about the quiet. And what you're saying is there's not enough distance from the crossing to the next street for the cars to stop in there. That's what the distance is required?
yeah, there's a metric. There are books of conditions for how you do a quiet crossing, and the signage and media. You spoke about a number of them, about being able, you must have enough gates and enough raised medians to physically prevent a car or a bicycle, in this case a pedestrian, from being able to physically cross because they rely on horns as being the primary method of alerting people that they're coming. But one of the metrics is they also want enough time for a car to recognize the gates, etc., and they measure that in distance, which we don't have.
So there's really no way to do it then, other than an underpass or an overpass?
Yeah, correct. If we had $100 million, I'd recommend we lower the railroad tracks through town and be done with the whole thing, but we don't have $100 million, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. I thought legally they had to toot their horns when they go through the crossing. So there's no way you can get out of it. You know.
That's a requirement, and the way they do it, it depends on whether they like us or not, but There is a legal way to go through a process to eliminate that. That's what this is. It's specifically called quiet crossings. It's a federal regulation, but it comes with a whole bunch of conditions that we can't meet. So.
Anything else?
That's it.
Any other questions or comments?
My name is George Sandy, long-time resident here. Enjoy this little town quite well. I see several different faces on the council and in attendance here, so I'm going to venture out with a suggestion I've made a couple of times in the past about the railroads. We have a very progressive, forward-planning group in this town, led by Ray, and I'd like to put the emphasis on these gentlemen to think a little bit more forward than we do in a normal planning procedure. In the past, I've proposed putting about 2 miles of this track below ground level with an open trench type of construction, 2 rails down in there. They can do that. They have enough right of way. They can do that without interrupting the traffic. The railroad people love these kind of suggestions. That would eliminate all the whistleblowing, all the dangers of explosion, derailments, and make it facilitate a very low-cost crossings at ground level across this railroad, which is increasing the volume of traffic every day. And I'm aware of some of the cargoes they're carrying, which helps prompt me to present this idea again. I know we're a very small city, but I've had experience with other cities, personally myself with the city of Alhambra, which was quite highly developed, and they did the bullet and put their railroad below ground level. And now they will praise and brag about that anyway. You want to talk in the traffic cycles. So that's my pitch again. I would like to have Tehachapi, which is a very progressive city. We're growing. There's nothing going to stop this growth. And I think we ought to look to the future for these safety issues, noise issues, and convenience and smog too, all the idling cars waiting. And so I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think I can speak for all of us. If we had the money, we would start tomorrow. I agree with you. Any other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion for the Active Transportation Program Rail Corridor Pedestrian Safety Project.
I'll second.
You need a first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I make the motion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. As presented by staff, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Number 11, oh, we are removing number 11.
Yes, I would request that you guys remove number 11. There are some errors in our staff report, so I need to fix that before I bring it back.
Okay.
Just a comment on the last one. Thank you for staff on that item that we just approved. A lot of years, a lot of time and effort put into that, and for it to enhance our safety from constituents in my district on the north side, much appreciated, and I'll convey to them that this is on its way, but I'm sure they'll be watching and see it, but thank you for the time and effort on this. Got it.
Thank you. Number 12.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, honorable council members. The item that you have before you is an extension of a current agreement that we have with Kern County Public Health Services. Since 2017, the city of Tehachapi has utilized the services of Kern County Public Health to help manage our cross-connection program. County Public Health Services Department has a division within this department that manages cross-connection programs for multiple water purveyors throughout Kern County. This service consists of the management and oversight to ensure customers within each contracted water system that own backflow assemblies are tested, inspected, and in good working order to ensure the protection of the potable water system. Draft agreement has been reviewed by city legal staff and the legal staff from the county. Again, this is just a renewal of our ongoing agreement. They've been providing these services for us for the last few years. It is the recommendation of staff that the City of Tehachapi continue utilizing these services for a one-year agreement with the Kern County Public Health Services Department for cross-connection control program management and oversight, and requesting that City Council authorizes the city manager to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the audience concerning this? Council? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of the cross-connection control program management, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Mr. Garrett, do you have anything this evening?
Just one thing, it looks like Michelle Vance has left the room. So, I wanted to say thank you to Michelle. She's a great friend, a great professional, and the city and this community is going to miss her. And Godspeed to her in her new endeavors in Colorado, and we wish her all the luck. And thank her for her dedicated, unyielding service to this community.
Thank you. Oh, I'm going to go through everyone else and then defer to you, Mr. Hickey. Is that okay? Do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Nothing.
There was an issue on Bamboo Court with a resident living at the end of the cul-de-sac with draining issues during the storms with runoff from the neighborhood, and the Public Works was able to fund this project and replace the curb, gutter, and asphalt to solve the issue. Also, the police parking lot has been completed. On C and Pauling, neighbors are complimenting the work and the cleanup of the neighborhood as a result. And striping is expected to come in the following week. Also, our Main Street Transit Center is packed on a daily basis, and I count the cars as I go by, and I'm shooting, I'll run into something, but sometimes 100 or more cars are there a day.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's being utilized and with good intentions, I think, by all. So, and it's a meeting place for people when they're going places where, you know, instead of saying Albertsons, it's meet at the Park and Ride. So, and we're due to having 2 more transit stations across the street by the, I think it's Edison Public Works.
Kern Regional.
Yeah.
Kern Transit.
Yeah, there's supposed to be some more bus stops coming in, and they aren't here yet. And Kern Regional is putting those in, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd just like to thank city staff for fixing the potential sinkhole on Pinion. People would come visit me and we get ready to go downtown, and they turn the corner and go, which way do I go? Because everything was, they were trying to protect that from getting worse. They did it over spring vacation, was ready Monday morning when everybody showed up to school, and it's wonderful. And I can just drive up and down the street. All right, Mr. Hickey, number 14.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We briefly discussed this at the last meeting, but decided that it would be more appropriate to go on the agenda. And it's just a simple question that has been asked of me by numerous individuals in the community, so I brought it to the council. Are there any matters or issues currently being discussed or involving the FAA that the council should be aware of? And that's to you, Mr. Garrett.
So as I had answered previous meeting, no, but I did ask Ashley Whitmore to reach out to the FAA and spoke to the FAA. So Ms. Whitmore?
So I did contact our planner with the FAA, let him know about the question you posed. And he responded with, there were no issues he could think of. So no on our end and no on their end.
Okay, and who was that at the FAA that was,
That would have been George Bewley.
okay, thank you.
Is that all on that one?
That's all that is on that one. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Number 15?
Number 15, again, I've had numerous individuals in our community come forward and mention to me that they were unaware of any ordinance that we may have. And I think this probably is driven by the national stage or even the state stage when it comes to finances regarding entities that are paid into. We know that Vince Long has been fighting a recent battle with the DMV, talking about additional funding and possibly not providing any additional funding. Nevertheless, some of these discussions that were directed back at me were specifically related to whether or not the city of Tehachapi could consider creating an ordinance that would ensure that our taxpayers are allowed or granted a balanced budget scenario when it comes to any of our enterprise funds. I searched through our ordinances. I couldn't find anything that was directly related to that. And again, I think it comes from the state or the national stage more than the local. But that was presented as a question to me, and I would just like to have staff answer to a certain extent, as much as you can to a certain extent, whether or not we have anything in place that would ensure our taxpaying public that we have a balanced budget concept or program in place should we get an enterprise fund out of whack, and whether if it's high or low, how we address that. And I think, Mr. Garrett, that's sort of an open-ended question to you that may end up going to the finance director.
I'd be happy to start the conversation. So first off, we do not follow Washington, D.C., or Sacramento's lead. We balance our budget every year. That's done in public forums, that's blessed by the city council. When we're talking about enterprise funds, we're not talking about taxpayers. We're talking about ratepayers. So water, sewer, those things are rates, those are not taxes. Nevertheless, we're proud, very, very proud of the fact that we present and you pass a balanced budget every year. We can pay our bills, and we do. Even through the Great Recession, we're able to manage our way through without cutting services or cutting personnel. We came out the other end, and look at us now. We're doing some really good things. Projects are just on fire, whether it's public or private, and we're not growing just to grow, certainly. Except we have a very fiscally responsible staff from top to bottom and bottom to top. Everybody understands the budget. We do have extra money, which is a really good thing. Some of our neighbors have no money, and they're always in emergency mode. Is that they pass special sales tax measures, they pass special property tax measures, they do all kinds of creative things to pay their bills. We don't. We live within our means, day in and day out. Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, if I can maybe pick up from it there. I'm experienced at writing rate studies. That was part of my previous career as a consultant. I reviewed the rate studies for the water and sewer, and maybe speaking less about balanced budget, I think Greg has spoken to that issue, but more about the proposed 15% surplus or shortfall caps that you're proposing in there. I did a quick analysis in preparation tonight, and I wanted to tell you my professional opinion on this is that arbitrary caps and shortfalls are strongly not recommended. And the reason for it is you need to have reserve accounts you obviously don't want any shortfall. I would argue 0% shortfall is desirable. We don't, you know, so certainly if you guys wanted to move as a body and suggest that none of our enterprise funds be in the red, we at staff would wholeheartedly agree with you that we have a policy that none of our enterprise funds be in the red. We have 5 enterprise funds: refuse, water, sewer, transit, and the airport. Refuse and transit happen to have a surplus under the 15% marker now, but that makes sense because because both of them are contract services, 100% contract services, and therefore our liabilities are limited, and therefore having a relatively small reserve makes sense in those cases. Water and sewer, I think, are the ones you're really talking about. I wasn't at the last council meeting, but I understand that you brought up this issue talking about having a water surplus and should we have less of a water surplus. And my opinion is this, which is you need to have a surplus. When we do these rate studies, and I did them in my prior career, we always recommend, first of all, the 2 studies, water and sewer, that you have, do have in the rate studies formal recommendations from the authoring engineers as to how much reserve you should have. And so that's where you can find the actions the council took in terms of what your desired reserves are. But the primary issue is that having an arbitrary number for determining your reserve amount is a high liability business. So let me illustrate it for you. 15% of the sewer fund, operating sewer fund budget is $246,623. So the operating fund budget expenses are just over $2 million. And 50% is 15% is 246. We could easily have, if an earthquake were to occur, we could have a problem at the wastewater treatment that would evaporate $246,000 in 2 weeks. And so 15% as a surplus is an unwise amount of reserve to carry. You want to carry $1 million or $2 million of reserve in that account because of the critical nature of that facility and the importance in an emergency to have the cash on hand to deal with that problem. For instance, we had one, I can illustrate the water fund. We had a catastrophic failure in a well here just a few months ago that we're busy expending cash fairly quickly on to get that well back in operation prior to the hot months so that we have enough water to serve people water. And again, due to its critical nature, like it's not like transit where if we have a bus that breaks down, we can call KRT and borrow a neighbor's bus. Like we can't borrow a neighbor's well. We have to have the cash on hand to fix that problem. So here's the capper though for all of that. So that's the basis of why we argue in favor of having a reserve account that is healthy in some cases because we need to have the cash available. But here's the take home. We quickly looked at the water rates and sewer rates between the city of Tehachapi, Stallion Springs, Golden Hills, and Bear Valley. We are, for a single-family house, the lowest rate of each of those agencies for water, for sewer, for small water users, and for large water users. So not only do we have a healthy set of funds, but we also have the best rates of any of our neighbors in the zip code, which I think is a testament to a well-managed system that's right where it needs to be. So those are my opinions. I wanted to share those with you since I have experience in writing these studies and to argue to you, just be careful of an arbitrary number because it doesn't reflect reality.
Thank you, Jay. And I'll point out that Golden Hills CSD and Bear Valley CSD just raised their water rates recently. Bear Valley Springs raised their rates 300%. Now, there are reasons for that, but the biggest reason, and really the only reason is they needed more money to invest in their water system. We're investing every day in our water system, and our rates are stable. We're not asking anybody for a 1% raise or a 300% raise. We're very stable. I'm very proud of that fact.
If I may. And the studies that you're referring to, they are required by statute, correct? So the rates that we charge have to have a nexus with an engineering study that says you're not charging too much. Otherwise, if the fund is too flush with cash, like you mentioned, maybe we should return that to the taxpayer. But what we have is a situation where we have enough cash on hand for emergencies. We also have enough capital for future growth. And those funds that come into the sewer and water are from connection fees when development happens. Those people here already, the taxpayers here, do not need to be, or we do not pay for the new people and their new houses coming online. They pay their share of connection fees. And they're up around 10,000 for both sewer connection, water connection fee, 10 to 14,000?
10 to 14, yeah.
So it's substantial. So that builds up our capital for future development if we have to add another element to the treatment plant or to the water system. So we've got the cash, correct?
Yeah, and if I can add to that, you guys authorized us to hire in about 8 months ago to begin the process of reviewing those capital expenses. And so I'm in the last 3 months, hopefully, of having that done and then presenting those results. So we may be adjusting those rates up or down, again, doing that process that you spoke about.
Another item is that I remember being on the council and just holding off on raising rates, whether it was refuge or water or sewer, trying to be the good guys, not imposing a water rate every year. And then we waited 10 years and then it went up like $2 and everyone screamed bloody murder. So now we have it incrementally tied to the CPI. Is that correct? Correct. So it's a little bit each year tied to that versus a huge hit, even though it's not a large, but people on fixed incomes, they really notice if we save it up for 10 years before we announce a big increase. So I think we're doing pretty good, but I appreciate the explanation of the percentage, what we should have. I'm not sure what we're at, but it does make sense. And it is tied to statute that we have to have an engineering study that takes into consider future development of the systems to have that capital available. But I appreciate the conversation.
Additionally, we're one catastrophic event away from a serious financial crunch, right? So having capital in the bank is a good thing. Also, and Hannah may want to elaborate on this a little bit, but whenever sometimes we need to go get a loan, flood a bond maybe, to make an improvement, a big improvement on some of our capital, like the wastewater treatment plant. The project that Dawn is heading up is a $10+ million project. We have to get grants, use some of our money, some low interest loans, and so on. But if we need to go to the bank, or we need to float a bond, the financial community looks at the health of our books. And if we don't have a certain amount of minimum cash in the bank, and we don't have a healthy revenue stream, the answer will be no. And we can't go there. We want it to be yes if we need to ask for help.
I have a question also. If I'm not mistaken, a few months ago, Hannah, you presented an item that we're investing that money. We're just not at the bank. We've got it a little bit more percentages on our savings.
The money that sits idle is invested into LAIF, Local Agency Investment Fund, and the Chandler Asset, that's another pool that these San Joaquin Valley, the risk management, the cities, in a joint power, we have a pool to invest our money in, yes.
So that cash is available to us, but we're making a little bit more money on it.
It earns interest.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Thanks, Jay. Phil, I appreciate your input. The issue remains, our taxpayers, our ratepayers, whatever we want to refer to our citizens as that contribute to the enterprise funds via a product or a service that's provided. We've described 3 or 4 mechanisms tonight we've got engineering reports, we've got financial reports and outside investments, we've got other things that are going on. Again, the question that is raised is, do we have an ordinance? Do we have the ability, or do we provide the information to our citizens to where they can come either to City Hall or to the code book or the ordinance book and understand, without having to go to 4 or 5 different individuals within city staff, and understand how their money is being used, consumed, allocated. And if there is a situation where it is behind or under budget, or whether it's over budget, that we are addressing that. Again, it's not the specifics, it's the description of how we as an elected body are handling that. And 5 years, 10 years down the road, names and faces change, and times change. The ability to generate revenue in any of these funds may change also. And it's important that we make it clear to our citizens, our constituents, that we have on the books a menu, a guideline for how we do this to the best of our abilities to ensure that those enterprise funds have cash, like Jay mentioned. We've got surplus when we need it, but it appears now that we have a void. We have a void in our ordinance that allows the everyday average citizen to understand how we do our job. And that's what the question ultimately is. Can we get to a point of where we could provide an ordinance that is more appropriate or better understood by the average person on how we do our job internally? Yeah, sure, Phil.
If I could chime in, I think...
And feel free, this is...
Discussion.
Absolutely, this is just an open discussion on this.
As far as an ordinance, I'm not sure we need another layer of complication to this. Our budget is completely transparent, and what I do like about our budget, because you mentioned in 5 years where faces are gone or whatever, but our budget is always a rolling 5-year budget, so that when we do that here in the next month or so, we project out what we predict our expenses are going to be and what our income is going to be. And if we see a shortfall like we were going to have during the recession, we scaled back on our expenses, and we knew that next year we weren't going to buy another backhoe or something, but it's all planned out 5 years in advance. And we have a very solid record of balanced budgets. So I believe our record of balancing our budget, I don't remember when it was in the red, if it was very minor in 1 year, but over a long period of time, our balanced budget, I think, speaks for itself in the way that the staff goes that 5 year out and plans far out, so that we're not surprised next June when we see, let's say a company goes out of business, we're not going to get that revenue. We have to plan for that. But I believe our record of balanced budgets year after year, and with our grand jury coming in and saying, you have balanced budgets year after year, and kudos for that. I think that, and being so transparent, everyone is welcome. They can see if we have a budget session. It's televised now. But if there needs to be more than that, I'm not sure people understand ordinances versus a budget, because we all, in our families, we know what we can afford. We can't afford that car this year, but if we budget out, we can afford it next year. So I like the rolling 5 years personally. Just my take on it.
Also, I call it the budget book. It's a presentation of our budget, which is coming up June 3rd. It's all color-coded, it's all divided by enterprise funds, by each budget, and it's very easy to read. And I've been doing this for a long, long time as a journalist, and don't hand me a computer printout from the county of Kern that supervises how we pay our bills, because it might be 3 feet tall, but such as you give out, and I know some other agencies do that now too, it's really clear, and it's colorful, color-coded, and there aren't any obscure terms in it. It's very, very straightforward as far as saying something that our community could understand. I think in any given year that they could look at that report and get a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with you, Madam Mayor. I would just like you to ask a question. I realize we don't have a lot of people here, but, have members of our audience, have we looked at a budget to a point of where we've tried to understand that on face value without having some type of a menu behind that? Have members of our community looked at that budget and understood what that is? And again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but I'm just trying to make sure that we have access to how we do stuff available to the community so they can see it. And I agree, the budget is, it's broken down nice.
It's clear.
But we work with budgets. Joan, we work with budgets. Yeah, Michael. I mean, that's the business that we're in. The average person, though, that's in our community may not be familiar with that to a point of where they can open that document and understand exactly what it says.
I would say that it's easier for me. I remember taking physics in college, and if there was a formula next to a picture, I'd remember the formula because of the picture that was next to it. But if it was just text on the page, I'd have to highlight the hell out of it to remember the formula. But pictures say a lot, and you can remember that pie chart for that fund or whatever easier than diving into an ordinance, which I'm not sure if they would be any more comfortable with that, Ken. All right?
Okay, thanks.
Mike Buffer, Tehachapi resident. First of all, I would caution against a balanced budget amendment because that would lock you into not being able to spend if you needed to for an emergency. Anybody who thinks that any American family who owns a house has done it with a loan and they have a balanced budget, they are deficit spending. And the reality of our nation is sometimes you do have to deficit spend. Second of all, it's incumbent upon me as a system to go and look and see if you guys are doing a good job. Well, it's great that we want to spoon feed everybody. Democracy takes action by its citizens in order for it to be effective. And if we don't bother to go look, it doesn't matter if you put it in my hand. If I don't bother to go look through what you're doing, an ordinance is not going to fix that. And that's, I don't need you to spoon feed me, have a decent and intelligent human being, all the information. I can read it for myself. So I don't think having an ordinance saying you can't exceed this is going to make any difference. It's just another law that we might not be able to enforce. And we have a couple of those on our books here in town, so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I wanted to note also that I used to teach people how to write grants for a living, and then I didn't have to write all the grants. But the hardest part that people had within the school district who had master's degree was, I don't know how to write a budget. I said, come on in. And I said, can you write down your home budget for me? And they said, yeah. And I said, cool. Now write down the budget you want to spend for this grant. And they were amazed that it was that easy. So, sometimes with this helping along or giving instruction and presenting them with something that's user-friendly helps a lot. Just a minute, Socorro. Go ahead.
One last comment would be if it's something we need to have more awareness of the public for their input, that we maybe really tell the public when our workshop's going to be for the budget coming up, make sure they're aware and know, and if they can't be here to watch the video.
Absolutely. So we plan on budget hearing June 3rd, starting at 3 o'clock in this room. I'll remind everybody that the budget is online, and we have the mid-year budget reviews about 6 months into our budget. And essentially, every time we have a city council meeting, we have a little mini budget workshop because we're spending the public's money. Also, there's no need to go to 3, 4, 5, 6 people at City Hall. Call Hannah Chung and call myself. That's it, period. We'll answer the question real time.
Thank you. Socorro?
I've always looked at the budget, and if I found anything puzzling, I tried to figure it out. And you would be surprised how many people in the general public have something to do with accounting. I'm not an accountant, but I've been a bookkeeper for many people, for many different kinds of bookkeeping. I have balanced payroll, I have balanced, when I say payroll, I also say number of employees. I do my budget for the week, for the month, for the year. I try to figure out when my big bills are coming up. I try to have my money in place so that we can pay it without any tearing out of our hair. And you would be surprised how many people that don't have an accounting job understand accounting. Thank you.
My hat goes off to anyone who understands accounting. Mr. Hickman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. It was just purely a discussion. I think we had the discussion, and I think there were some questions that were answered, and I think that will satisfy the queries that were directed to me by the folks in our general public.
Okay.
So great, thank you.
Number 16.
Number 16. What I would propose is that we move. And this, a little bit of background, you know, we have a couple of, well, one for sure, local agency, Golden Hills Community Service District, who holds their closed session portion of their meeting prior to their general session meeting. The benefit of doing that is we can go into closed session, we can have our discussions, and then with anything that is an outcome, Mr. Schroeder, you can come out and then provide it to the public. As we all know, you know, we go into closed session at 7:30, 8:30, 9:30 at night sometimes. Well, we come out and all the lights are turned off, the people are gone, the parking lot's empty, and we're the last ones in the building. So as a better resource to our community regarding some of the discussions or decisions that are made in closed session, I propose that we bring our closed session meeting ahead and have it either 5 or 10 minutes early to the 6 o'clock mark, or we could even go to the 6 o'clock mark because quite honestly, our closed session meetings don't last very long. Then we could come back and we could go right into open session. You could report any findings that were permissible to be reported to the public, Mr. Schroeder, and then we just carry on with business.
And that's fine, but don't do it for transparency purposes, because rarely is there anything to report out. It's either a litigation matter that can't be reported out, it's either a contract that's been approved that can't be reported out until it's signed. There's just, the only reason I come back here after the closed session is to see if somebody's here who wants to know that I can't tell them what happened.
Yeah, and that's a fair enough statement.
And the second thing is, if you're going to hold it ahead of the 6 o'clock hour, you still got to post the agenda. So the agenda has to show it's 5:45, we're going to start the meeting. And don't say that we don't spend much time in closed session. I remember an hour or 2 or 2.5 hour closed sessions. So, you know, that's fine. Just remember that there's some downside to doing it that way too. That somebody's going to have to be waiting out here for the regular meeting to get started. But if you want to do it before that's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
Great, thank you.
My vote is it's been working fine. I talked to some constituents and they like the fact that the meeting starts on time, and if there's something to report out, they can either wait at their ability, but they don't want the meeting held up because we're still in closed session. I think it's an inconvenience for people who come at 6 o'clock. We used to have our meetings at 7, maybe we could have worked it in before 7, but now we're at 6 o'clock, and it's hard enough for people to get home from work and then make our 6 o'clock meeting sometimes. So just from my point of view, I think it's working okay with the way we have it, but understand why you would want to change it.
Anyone else?
I just would like to ask the audience, how many people would remain in the audience if we were in closed session for an hour? Would you still be there when we got back? You know, I may not want to be there, you know. would be long enough. So that's my only observation, I guess.
And I hate to fall back on my journalistic experience again, but I'm going to, because I've gone to a lot of meetings, especially some in a neighboring city to the east that I won't name, that held their closed sessions before the meeting. And we had to sit a long time, and lots of times they would come out and say, well, we're going to do the meeting. We didn't finish in closed session, so we're going to go back after this meeting. So it didn't accomplish anything. And that was them, not us, but I think if someone's coming to talk to us, that we should respect their time and listen to them and go on about our business afterwards, but that's me.
I have a question. Does this meeting has to start at 6 p.m.? Because it's posted, it has to start at 6 p.m.?
We set the time.
It has to start when it's posted to start.
Right, so this meeting,
Start later.
that's what I was reading. So if we went into closed session and we had something to talk about, then we would not be following what the agenda says at 6 p.m. That was my concern, Ken.
Well, you would be. You would be following the agenda even if you went into closed session at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Because the agenda says the meeting starts at 6 o'clock. Closed session is the meeting.
Okay.
When the mayor bangs that gavel, that starts the meeting, and then she sends us into closed session. You're fine with your agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think that, after the discussion, we may just leave this one alone.
All right,
And I guess on that note,
we're done.
we're getting to the back of the list, aren't we? I have nothing more. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Have a nice week.